as I worked on the prints, the idea of trying a similar image but translated into a needle and on an etching plate was the thing that was kind of in the back of my mind. And I finally got to the point where I wanted to give it a try. And I got two paintings that are almost this exact composition. And the thing that I like about etching and what I've kept at doing prints off and on over the years is it's kind of an opposite way of developing an image where it's just using a real fine needle, either etching or drypoint for the most part, as opposed to using big brushes in painting. And it's a thinking process that is totally different than painting. The way the image is built up, the values are established, is totally different. And it kind of gave me the opportunity to kind of clear my head from all of the concerns and problems and issues that would come up through the course of a painting. I could just kind of recharge working on a print. So the detail that I was striving to get in a painting translates into a lot of the detail that you see in the foreground in this print, similar ways of building up an area within the print or the painting. A lot of mark making is what it amounted to, and the prints, the etching process seemed to be such a compatible but different approach to accomplish the very same kinds of things. And that's why I stay with the whole process of etching. Even now, I would say 90% of the work in any print, with a few exceptions, is done just strictly with etching, using a fine needle to draw into the ground, etching the lines into the plate, and then printing. And then following along after I basically had the image completed, but to strengthen areas and to give a slightly different feel to the ink on the paper, I would come in with drypoint, which is using a different type of a needle for basically gouging the plate. The point of the needle is pressed into the plate and a little furrow is produced, and that holds ink in a different way than an etched line.
So would you say it's safe to say on this plate here that you there's not only etching on this plate, but then you go back and, like you said, besides etching, you would then take a dry point, which was a needle, and certain areas you were able to sort of draw onto the plate?
Yeah, and strengthen dark areas.
To make darker, to hold more ink.
To hold more ink, yeah.
So like in the shaded areas of the trees and stuff, it maybe wasn't dark enough for you, so you'd go back and etch or draw.
Right. And even in the foreground, just the way a dry point burr will hold ink in a way, it's similar to if you put India ink on damp paper and it bleeds out, feathers out. So that's real characteristic of a dry point mark, the burr that holds the ink. That's the way the line is held. It looks like it's kind of bled into the paper. So I use it in not just to strengthen darks, but also to add kind of a softness to areas throughout the print. And there you can manipulate the burr so it holds less ink than if you were to just strictly press that point into the plate and then print it just like that. You can take a scraper and trim a little bit of that burr away so that it begins to look more and more like an etched line.
So where on this print would you say there's some of what you're just talking about?
Well, down in the lower part of the print here, some of these soft areas where it's not just a real crisp, clean line. Some of this is made by that drypoint burr, and some is by the way the plate's wiped too. There's just a lot of different methods and techniques for bringing the image up, other than just strictly etching in the plate and then printing and seeing what you get. You can manipulate how the ink is wiped off the plate, and how the characteristics of the lines can be altered. I don't remember right off hand, but most likely I've also gone into this print with an engraving burin, kind of a little chisel, and strengthened. For me, it's almost always limited to straight lines because it's kind of an awkward tool to work with, you know, unless you really are an engraver, and I'm not. But I do use an engraving burin at times to further establish lines, and they're nearly all just straight or almost.
And you mentioned a scraper, and as I looked at this block here, which has all these lines on it, some places where you've scraped makes it more white,
well,
or does it, in a sense, erase some of the lines?
You know, yeah. It's a way of, well, basically erasing out marks that are on the plate. When I start building an image up, there are times where I want to change a transition area. Or I've etched something more than I wanted initially, and I can use a scraper and then a burnisher, which comes along after the scraper, to remove some of the line and then some of the ink in the print. And you can use a scraper to actually put a texture on the plate that will actually print too, by simply not burnishing. The idea is that a scraper removes the metal, and then the burnisher with a little bit of oil is used to polish the metal. So it's like a clean, fresh area on the plate again, if that's your intent, what you want. And that happens throughout the print, building the image up on the plate. I use a scraper and burnisher all the time, at times as much as a needle. When I get to the point where I'm refining the image, pushing the lights and darks around, and modifying things, the scraper and the burnisher really come into play at that point.